In this last video, we're going to be talking about vertical shifts. So when you add a number on the back end of a trig function, either sine or cosine, it doesn't matter, that's adding a constant to a trig function. And that will shift the graph up and down. A positive constant, so if the number is positive or if you're adding, it will shift the midline up that many spaces. A negative constant, or if the number is being subtracted, that will shift the midline and every other point, but I like to focus on the midline, down that many spaces. Vertical shifts will move the midline and will affect the range. So here's two examples that we're going to work on together. Remember, you can always type in these numbers into your calculator if that helps you the most, as opposed to I personally can just graph these without typing in my calculator, but I've been doing them a whole lot longer than you have. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to type, and you got to be a little careful here with your parentheses. Cosine 0, close your parentheses after the 0, after what you're taking the cosine, and then add 1. That's very important that that's what we're doing here. I could put parentheses there. They're not necessary when you're typing the problem out. They are necessary in the calculator. Cosine 90. So cosine 90, close parentheses, plus 1 is 1. Cosine 180, close parentheses, plus 1 is 0. Cosine 270, close parentheses, plus 1 is 1. Cosine 360, close parentheses, plus 1 is 2. So now when I go to my chart, 0 with 2, 90 with 1, 180 with 0, 270 with 1, 360 with 2. Make that same smooth curve connection. You'll notice that we have the same looking graph, but our midline has been shifted up 1. In fact, I like to just do my midline first. Your midline will always be what this number is, because it was always at 0, and so if you shift it up 1, down 1, it doesn't matter. That's where your midline will always shift to. So I like to dash in my midline first, and then you can see that cosine starts high, comes to midline, goes down to the valley, midline high. Now, what will change? Period is not going to change. We will be changing the period eventually, but we haven't learned that yet. The midline, which was y equals 0, is now at y equals 1. The amplitude, now you got to be careful because a lot of students want to say the amplitude is 2 because this goes up to 2. But remember, the amplitude is the distance from the midline to the valley, or from the midline to the peak. It's how far apart are these values. That is still a distance of 1. Okay, so there's no number multiplied out in front, so the amplitude is still 1. It's the distance from the midline to the peak. So it doesn't matter that the peak's at 2 because the midline's at 1. So that distance is still 1. Domain never changes, all real numbers. The range has changed. My lowest value is now 0, and my highest value is now 2. One more example. In this example, I want you to notice I have both an amplitude change and a midline change. Feel free to type all of these in your calculator if you still need that. That's not a problem. 2 sine 0, close parentheses, plus 3. 2 sine 90, close parentheses, plus 3. 2 sine 180, close parentheses, plus 3. 2 sine 270, close parentheses, plus 3. 2 sine 360, close parentheses, plus 3. Okay. I told you I like to graph my midline first. This is always going to be my midline. Always. So I like to put, notice I didn't put numbers on it, and here on out I don't put numbers on it, so you can put in your own numbers. So I need to get all the way up to 5 this time. and my midline is at 3. So I like to draw that first. Sketch that in. All right, and now 0 goes with 3, 90 with 5, 180 with 3, 270 with 1, and 360 with 3. Remember, sine starts in the middle and goes up and around, down and around, and there's my sine curve. The period still has not changed. We're not changing that yet. 360 degrees from beginning to end is 360 degrees. Midline did shift up to 3. Amplitude is always just that number but positive, and you can see it in the graph. This is at 3, this is at 5, that's a distance of 2. This is at 3, this is at 1, that's a distance of 2. Domain will never change. The range did change. The lowest value is 1, highest value is 5.